Efforts to evict several Palestinian families from a neighborhood in East Jerusalem called Sheikh Jarrah, and the confrontation of Israeli security forces with Palestinian civilians on May 6th has sparked a conflict in the Middle East between Jews and Palestinians. Thousands of rockets were fired upon Israel from Gaza by Hamas, and numerous airstrikes by Israeli forces on Gaza have led to the deaths of over 200 people, including innocent men, women, and children caught in the crossfire, and over 1,400 people have been wounded. A majority of the casualties and those who were wounded are Palestinians. In addition, nearly 7,000 buildings have been destroyed in Gaza, leaving 40,000 people homeless. Nations are weighing in on the conflict. The United Nations demanded an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Gaza. US President Biden says he backs a ceasefire, and even the Russian President Vladimir Putin was quoted as saying that the Israel-Palestine escalation poses a threat to Russia's security. That's significant because some prophecy teachers claim that the Battle of Armageddon spoken about in the book of Revelation will include Russia, the United States, Israel, and Arab Islamic forces. An online post entitled Bible Prophecy Revealed by Hagee Ministries states, Bible prophecy clearly reveals that in the last days, prior to the rapture of the church, 4 powerful kings will race onto the world stage with 2 objectives. 1, to conquer the world and to reign as global dictators, and 2, to conquer Israel and destroy the Jewish people. The 4 kings mentioned in Revelation are right now taking center stage for the first time in world history. The king of the north is Russia, the king of the east is China, the king of the west is America, and the United Kingdom. Does this mean we are headed toward the Battle of Armageddon? That's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. But before I do that, I want to thank the Preparation Ministry for sponsoring this video. The Preparation Ministry is a YouTube channel that produces inspiring Christian videos to help you understand the Bible better and prepare for the second coming of Jesus. Some of the videos you can watch on the Preparation Ministries channel include 9 facts about the second coming of Jesus, the Antichrist exposed, and is the rapture doctrine in the Bible. Click on the card in the upper right-hand corner of the screen or the link in the video description to subscribe to the Preparation Ministry and check out some of their videos today. Now back to the Battle of Armageddon. The word Armageddon is only mentioned once in the Bible in the context of Revelation chapter 16 verses 12 through 16, which says, Then the 6th angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs, coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are spirits of demons, performing signs, which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Behold, I am coming as a thief. Blessed is he who watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And they gathered them together to the place called in Hebrew Armageddon. Now, there's a lot to unpack there, but I'll start with the obvious. This conflict takes place right before the second coming of Jesus, because it's in the context of Jesus coming as a thief, and that's a reference to the second coming. Speaking of this, 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 10 says, But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. More evidence that this battle takes place right before the second coming of Jesus is the fact that it starts during the 6th plague. Revelation chapter 16 outlines 7 last plagues, which are the final judgments of God upon the wicked, and Jesus returns after the 7th plague. So the Battle of Armageddon starts during the sixth plague and stretches through the seventh plague until the return of Jesus. Another reference to the second coming of Jesus is in verse 12, when it talks about the water of the river Euphrates being dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. The river Euphrates being dried up symbolizes Babylon losing its support. The ancient city of Babylon was situated on the river Euphrates, and in the book of Revelation, Babylon symbolizes an end-time system of false religion that leads the world into apostasy. Speaking of Babylon the Great, also called the mother of harlots, Revelation chapter 17 verse 15 says, "The waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues." Water symbolizes people in Bible prophecy. These are the subjects of Babylon, and Babylon is dependent upon them for her support. So the Euphrates being dried up means Babylon loses its support before the second coming of Jesus. The subjects of Babylon will eventually turn on Babylon and attack her after they realize they have been deceived. Verse 16 illustrates this, stating, "And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot, make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire." This turn of events will help prepare the way for Jesus' return. The kings of the east represent Jesus and his angelic forces, which will accompany him upon his return. And speaking about his return, Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24 verse 27, "For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be." Jesus compared his return to lightning which flashes from the east. So east is the direction associated with the Lord's return. Revelation chapter 16 verses 13 through 14 goes on to mention 3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, to perform signs or false miracles to gather the world to the battle of Armageddon. The dragon, the beast, and the false prophet is Satan's trinity of deception in the last days. These agencies are actuated by evil spirits, and they perform false miracles to assemble the world for the battle of Armageddon. The fact that the dragon, beast, and false prophet are symbolized by frogs may illustrate their repulsiveness in God's sight, since a frog is an unclean animal. And the unclean spirits coming out of the mouth of these agencies may represent the policy that this threefold religious union proclaims to the world to deceive it, since a mouth is an instrument of speech. This, no doubt, will have to do with the enforcement of the mark of the beast. Revelation chapter 13 verses 14 through 17 indicates that laws will be made to restrict people from buying and selling if they reject the mark of the beast. And finally, if they remain persistent, a death decree will be issued against them. It says, "And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell, except one who has the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." Now, what I'm going to tell you next is different than what you may have heard from some popular prophecy teachers, and that is that the Battle of Armageddon will not take place in Jerusalem. It's commonly believed in many Christian churches that the Battle of Armageddon will take place in Jerusalem. However, there was never an actual geographic location with the name Armageddon. And the Bible indicates Armageddon is a global event because Revelation chapter 16 verse 14 talks about the kings of the earth and the whole world being gathered together for this conflict. And the Battle of Armageddon is not a war against the Jews in Israel, because Revelation chapter 12 verse 17 identifies the people that Satan is at war with in the last days. It says, "And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ." A woman symbolizes a church in Bible prophecy, and a remnant is the last remaining portion of something. So this is talking about God's end-time church. And God's end-time church is described as keeping His commandments and having the testimony of Jesus. Most Jews don't believe in Jesus, so this is not talking about them. It is God's commandment-keeping church that Satan is at war with, and that is who the Battle of Armageddon will be against. The Battle of Armageddon will be a global conflict in which the world will be united against God's commandment-keeping people who refuse to accept the mark of the beast. God's commandment-keeping people will reject the mark of the beast because it's a matter of false worship. Those who worship the beast and his image receive his mark, and that is a violation of the 10 Commandments, which tell us to worship God alone. God's commandment-keeping people will stand in the way of Satan's reign of this world. So he will gather the world against them in an attempt to eradicate them so that he can have total dominion of this world. Fortunately, that's not the end of the story, because Jesus will return to deliver his people from the final death decree issued against them and destroy those who attempt to take their lives. Revelation chapter 19 gives a symbolic description of Jesus returning on a white horse, followed by the armies of heaven. Verse 19 through 21 says, "And I saw the beast, the kings of the earth, and their armies, gathered together to make war against him who sat on the horse, and against his army. Then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet, who worked signs in his presence, by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast, and those who worshipped his image. These two were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. And the rest were killed with the sword, which proceeded from the mouth of him who sat on the horse. And all the birds were filled with their flesh." At the second coming of Jesus, the unrighteous are destroyed and God's people are delivered. But this is not the end of the Battle of Armageddon. There is a pause for 1,000 years during God's millennial judgment in heaven, and then the unrighteous will be raised again to meet their final judgment. Revelation chapter 20, verses 7 through 10 tells us what happens next. "Now when the 1,000 years have expired, Satan will be released from his prison. This is a prison of circumstances, since all of his subjects have been dead for 1,000 years, and he has had no one to tempt. And will go out to deceive the nations, which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea." Satan is able to deceive the nations now because the wicked have been resurrected to meet their final judgment. They went up on the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. And fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are. And they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. This ends the Battle of Armageddon. If you enjoy my videos and would like to financially partner with my channel to help me continue making inspiring, high-quality Christian videos to reach more people with the gospel, please prayerfully consider making a one-time PayPal donation or monthly Patreon pledge to help support my ministry. Your support helps keep my channel going. You can find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts in the video description. We are headed towards the Battle of Armageddon. Every day we are getting closer, but the Battle of Armageddon is not what some prophecy teachers make it out to be. It's not going to be a war in the Middle East. It's going to be a war against Jesus and his commandment-keeping people who refuse to compromise their faith and accept the mark of the beast. The good news is Jesus wins. No matter how hard the end times are going to be for believers in Christ, and make no mistake about it, there will be great tribulation, Jesus will return to deliver his people and bring an end to the reign of Satan upon this earth. Gain a better understanding of the book of Revelation by clicking on the screen and watching my video entitled Understanding the Book of Revelation: 5 Facts You Need to Know. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Please pray for my channel. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.